This meeting is being recorded.
That's a new voice on there. Okay, I think everyone is here for the most part, so we'll go ahead and get started. So first of all, Happy New Year to everybody. I'm excited about 2023, and it's going to be a busy year. I can tell already just by the things that are sort of, oozing out of the city and the port and the county and the state. So anyway, we'll have a lot of fun things to do and a lot of work to do. So we want to kick off this evening with some guest speakers from the Port of Seattle. And Denny actually had the idea to invite these folks, and I'm going to turn it over to him to introduce our speakers and then let them talk about the port. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you all for joining us. And I hope, can you hear me okay with my voice disappearing? Okay. And for those of you that don't know me, my name is Denny Bird. I'm part of the Queen Anne Council, and I'm chair of the Land Use Review Committee. Is how this all got started was several months ago. I was on one of the Port of Seattle cruises and met Ruth Perez Studer, and she is just happened to be the senior. Well, actually, she's part of the port. She works for the port. Let me tell you that first. Who gave a great review of the importance of the maritime industry in Seattle. And so with that, I grabbed her and said, I would love you to present at one of our meetings because I found it really interesting in a lot of ways, not only what they do, but what the jobs they have to offer and so forth and so on. So down the road, we've gone back and forth, and we've had Andy Gregory in, who is on with us, who is the Senior Program Manager of the Maritime Industrial Engagement. And is what that basically means is he supports the diverse maritime industry, and he's been doing that for over 20 years. So with that, I would like them to share all their great knowledge with all of us. And I'll ask them, would you guys prefer that the questions be held towards the end, or can they ask them as we go along?
So we can ask as probably at the end, if people want to note. I'm probably just going to take maybe 5 to 7 minutes and then have a conversation around things.
Okay.
Just to not blow you up with so much information and overwhelm you, to be able to just see what your interests are outside of then what I present to you this evening.
Okay, that's perfect. I'll let you take it over.
All right.
Ruth, I'll go ahead and pull the presentation up. And
okay.
if you want to run through the presentation, then maybe I'll just say a few words at the end, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
Okay. Can you guys see my screen? See the presentation? Okay, cool.
Okay. Well, good evening, first of all, and similarly, Happy New Year. There's been a lot in the past couple of years with maritime and with the port, as well as just in our communities that this fishermen's terminal, as well as your community just up the hill, is affected by. And so thank you so much for inviting me. I'm actually really excited it's my first presentation of the year. So you caught me, and here we go. I'm not sure how much history everyone knows about Fisherman's Terminal specifically. And so I'm just going to give a few points on what that looks like. It's over 100 years old. It is the first port property that the port ever acquired. And the reason that it was acquired is the railroad was starting to encroach more and more on the interbay. And the maritime, and specifically the fishing community, as well as the sawmills and other industries within the Salmon Bay Canal, were trying to protect the maritime industry. And therefore, they brought this association of port associates together and purchased this property to be able to support and maintain the maritime industry. From there, it moved and grew and became its own government. And so the Port of Seattle is actually its own government that is ruled or conducted through King County. It's not just in Seattle, but our ruling party or jurisdiction is through King County. And so you'll hear me kind of speak to some of that as I go through this presentation for the rest of King County as well. So just to kind of have that understanding of the beginning of Fisherman's Terminal, it also is now and continues to be since its inception, the home of the North Pacific Fishing Fleet. And the Pacific Fishing Fleet are a plethora of what are called gear groups for fishing vessels that go to Washington as well as to Alaska. Gear groups mean the different types of fishing that the different fishing fleets go through. So what you see actually in front in this photograph would be a seiner, and they will take out something that's called a purse seiner. You may have seen it, where they make almost like a purse. And as they circle around the fish with a secondary little boat, which is a skiff, they will close up their net and pull it up out of the water, similarly to looking like a coin, an old coin purse. And so that's why it's called a purse seiner. And so there's different gear groups, and gear is what you see literally on their boat. So we have different types of gear groups that will go and fish different types of fish. And so some of them are long liners, so they'll throw out a really long line and with hooks on it, and then they'll throw it out and just drag it, and whatever catches onto that hook is what they will bring back in. The salmon will also be distinct, and so it's, again, each gear group has a different type of vessel, and then they also like to be in different parts of Fisherman's Terminal. And so I can show you that as we go. Next slide, please. So while Andy tries to figure this out, that might be Alaska. I don't know, maybe.
That was from a conference in Banff.
Okay.
But that's not what this presentation is about. I really don't know what's going on here. Let's take it out of full screen.
Okay.
And go here. Oh, it really likes this first slide.
Okay.
Let's try that.
It is a beautiful picture. So what we're representing here is so I'm the senior manager of Fisherman's Terminal, the Maritime Industrial Center, as well as Salmon Bay Marina. I have other coworkers, and one is on this call as well. And she is a senior manager of T91. And so each of us have actually a plethora of different facilities that we manage depending on the customer base that we have. So Fisherman's Terminal is a terminal. It's not a marina. It is an industrial location for the fishing fleet primarily. Secondarily, it's for commercial vessels. And thirdly, it is for recreational boats. The recreational boats were only allowed in by commission boat about 22 years ago. So by commission jurisdiction, Fisherman's Terminal started out as only for fishing vessels and commercial vessels, and they had to vote on that to be able to allow recreational boats in. So anything throughout the years to adjust our customer base still needs to go to commission for a vote. In 2018, we going up kind of the canal towards, if we go west, if you orient yourselves, Queen Anne is down in the bottom corner. And so from Fisherman's Terminal, if we go towards the west, Salmon Bay is a smaller marina. And actually that was purchased in 2018. And that is a recreational boat marina. Most of the vessels there are wooden boats. And so they are under covered moorage. And so people, there are a few liveaboards, but not very many. I think we have about 17 on the books right now. And so we just continue to support that as kind of an extension of Fisherman's Terminal because of the waterways that we share there. And then moving then towards the locks further west, we have the Maritime Industrial Center. And that was purchased much earlier, kind of, I think it was the 60s or 70s. And that was a former Coast Guard station, actually. That has deep water that is close to the locks there. That is where we have our larger vessels. I say my largest vessels, but if you talk to Kelly, who is on this call, who runs T91, she'll say my boats are pretty small in comparison to what she sees out over off of Elliott Bay. But oftentimes the fleets that, or customers that she and I share, she will have the larger vessels and I will have the smaller vessels of the same customers. Most of them are for the Maritime Industrial Center trawlers. And so they will be larger and they will sometimes go on 2 fishing seasons. One is called A season and another is called B season. And so some of them are actually preparing to leave pretty soon now by the end of July. So there's a lot of movement happening. There's a lot of equipment being moved around, a lot of welding. And so that industrial center really has a lot happening within this season. And I wanted to show this to you to get a bit of a context on port facilities, how we are located, and also for you to keep in mind, and this, you know, Denny, coming out of the ship canal cruise tour that we did, just to orient ourselves a little bit along the ship canal and what that looks like in supporting not only the port properties, but the fishing community and the maritime community that supports it. And throughout the canal, there are so many services and supplies that these fishing vessels need that Fisherman's Terminal is essential for the continued economic development of this region. Next slide, please. And I see Kelly has something in the chat about the boats will be departing for season A here pretty soon. Let's see. Season A mid-March and then returning mid to late March, or mid-January, sorry, and then mid to late March. If we think about, and I wanted to present to you, and I didn't know how much you all know, and we didn't talk about this on the ship canal, was the Port of Seattle and specifically Fisherman's Terminal environmental programs. We have certifications, which you see there, the Salmon Safe, as well as the Clean Marina certification, which we are in partnership with the Puget Sound Keepers. With that, those 2 certifications, we continuously have our operational standards within the facilities, even though it's a working industrial terminal, to ensure that people do not paint over the water, they do not dump in the water, that they do not dump into the storm drains because, as many people actually don't know, Port of Seattle has their own storm water utility. And so we control our stormwater, and that's part of the Salmon Safe program. So we're constantly using filters, we're constantly putting in pads through the stormwater, and ensuring that anytime the fishermen are working in the uplands, that they are also aware of the storm drains and doing everything that they can to prevent any kind of dumping or spillage that might happen. Another part of this Clean Marina certification for Fisherman's Terminal specifically, if you've ever been down to Fisherman's Terminal, on the very west wall, where the larger vessels are, there is upland storage. The fishermen will store their equipment there, and part of our prerequisite is that they continuously will cover their equipment so that there's not seepage then into the storm drain for metals and any other types of materials that would then be going into the water. Part of really working on this, and this is in partnership during some of the salmon season, is working with the Muckleshoots Indian tribe so that they can work and do their treaty rights of salmon fishing within the canal. And so really being part of Salmon Safe, as well as in partnership with the local tribes, ensures that we are doing the right thing, even though we are an industrial location. Another partnership, as well as initiative, and you can see that in the two photographs that we have there. This was a partnership with American Seafoods. And Kelly, if she would like, can write a little note on it, but that is with Net Your Problem. That is a company that came out of Maritime Blue, which is a startup organization that we support as well. And they are a part of the second cohort that was with Maritime Blue. And their initiative is to recycle fishing nets, that at a certain point, they no longer are able to use them. And so to prevent any further damage to the oceans, she and others, she's a scientist, is working with big organizations such as American Seafoods that you can see here to cut up all of their fishing nets, distributing them by the types of materials that they are, and designating them to different containers to then be shipped and recycled, melted down, and become what are little pellets that then they can mold into new products. And so it's really putting that life cycle of the nets to use. And so those are the efforts and one of the initiatives, local initiatives that we have. And one of the efforts that they had, I think it was about 3 months ago with American Seafoods. And Beth looks like she put the website in there. And I can send more information after this presentation on any of these initiatives that you may be interested in. Next slide, please. Paula, did you have a question?
I don't have a question. I just wanted to note the time. We're at 20 after 7. So
Sure.
if we
Okay.
can wrap up in about
Sure.
5 minutes or less, that'd be great.
Sure. So workforce development, we have the Maritime High School. The port sponsors the Maritime High School. And they are in their second year, freshman and sophomore. They are looking to have 100 students per class. And it is a project-based learning program. It is in the Highline School District right now, but Commissioner Calkins is the one who really pushed to have the Maritime High School come to fruition. Furthermore, in terms of partnerships for workforce development, like I said, was Maritime Blue, and we do a lot of youth collaboration. And the port also, in terms of initiatives, most recently this past year has put $4 million for maritime specific career launch learning. And so there are various organizations within the region that have received some of that funding to really work and develop the workforce development initiatives within not only with the Canal and Seattle Maritime Academy that's in Ballard, but also local organizations and companies. Next slide, please. So the fishing season, like I said, just ebbs and flows. The A and Bs, at least for hake and a few of the other species, is starting to happen. Then during the summer, people will then leave for salmon and pollock, halibut, and so on. Some of the industry partners that we have at Fisherman's Terminal or across the street off of Commodore Way are the Bering Sea Crabbers Association. And we as a port most recently supported them when the crab season was canceled to be able to support them to either pivot to a new season of different types of crabbing. So that would be many went to Dungeness crabs, as well as talking to the commissioners to have some economic support there. Others are the Groundfish Forum. We've partnered with them to help support understanding that the North Pacific is the most sustainable fishery in the world, and it is controlled by many different entities, including NOAA. And then we have the Freezer Longliner Association that's across the street, and we partner with them just to continue to understand any of the needs that the industry has. And finally, events that happen at Fisherman's Terminal start with the blessing of the fleet, which happens around April as the most of the fleet starts to head out. And that is to wish them not only good luck and safety, but safe returns. Then there is the fall, and part of that is supported by the Fisherman's Terminal Memorial Board, where they also run a safety training before the fleet leaves. And so the blessing of the fleet happens about a month later. We do the safety fair to ensure that the fleet is in safety compliance, and then they leave. And when they come back, we do the fall festival. I know that that has been on hiatus for a few years, but we are working with the Tenants Association of Fisherman's Terminal to work and make that happen. And so that, I think, concludes our presentation. If there's any questions.
I have a question, and I don't know if you happen to have this information. I know one of the things that I found really interesting was the amount of revenue that the fisheries business generates for the Seattle area. I was quite surprised. Do you happen to have that number in round order of magnitude?
So the most recent, and we actually have a study that's going to be happening at the end of this year for the more recent numbers, because the most recent numbers were from 2017 and 2018. If I remember, it was like $35 million is, I think, the last number that I saw. But don't quote me on that. And I do have that information that I can share. But in terms of most up to date, I know that that will be coming soon in this next year.
Great.
But yes, it is pretty large.
Yeah, we'll look for that. If there are any other really quick questions, Denny, you've got some.
Yeah, I have a quick one. I know we're time constrained here, but one thing that I found during our little cruise was, the availability of jobs for people, and that they're looking for people. And if one of you guys, Ruth, if you could tell us how you would, let's say I had a kid and I want to get them going, or I need to get going, I want to change careers. How do I even start?
Depending on what you want to do, if you want to go to the fishing fleet, You don't need many skills. You almost can sign up and just go to the docks and see if they need any help. So oftentimes that still is the case. It's kind of the last frontier. And if you would like to be an engineer or an official deckhand on a different type of vessel, depending on your age, you can start to go to Seattle, the Maritime High School, to start to obtain some of those skills.
And how do you get the information to even tell me where to sign up to do that?
Sure. Yeah. And I can send out those links for sure.
Okay.
And then the Seattle Maritime Academy that is across the street in Ballard,
okay,
that is for people who have graduated, and that's part of the Seattle Colleges program. And that is a 18-month program, $10,000. And after you graduate, most of the people who are either engineers or deckhands will be making $50,000 to $70,000 with their first job, and only with a $10,000 investment. So it's a good deal and a good start, and they are getting hired right off the bat.
Okay, so yeah, if you can send us that information so that I can just hand it to somebody, and if somewhere they want to start school or whatever, it kind of gives them a 1, 2, 3 step on who to contact or how to even do it.
Indeed, for sure. I will send those out.
Okay, I would appreciate that.
Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Paul.
No, I was just going to say thank you. We appreciate your time this evening. I did find it, like I say, I found it very interesting that the fisheries business is as big as it is, and also I think to Denny's point, the job opportunities, especially for young people, were fascinating to me. So anyway, always interested to know about different things that our young people can do. So thank you.
Yes, so get the word out. If people don't want to go to college, it is college. It's just a different type of college.
Yeah. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I would just add on to that really quickly that there's a lot of shoreside support businesses also that don't require going out to sea. You know, I can speak a little bit from personal experience. I had a captain's license, 100-ton near coastal master's license for a number of years, spent a bunch of time out at sea. And when I started a family, I didn't really want to go do that for the rest of my life. And so there's a variety of businesses and industries in and around, Ballard, the Ship Canal, Lower Queen Anne and stuff that really support this fleet when they're here. Folks that are welders, folks that are electricians, folks that are riggers, who know how to keep these boats running. And so some really good, well-paid trades there as well.
Great. Thank you.
Paul, I have one more comment.
Go ahead.
I want to thank them all for being here. Kelly, you snuck in. I'm sorry I didn't introduce you.
No.
And even though I do know you, if I'd have seen you, I'd have known who you were. And then I would encourage anybody to remember how important the maritime industry is along, because I know that we have a little bit of, with affordable housing and stuff, that they're going to be pushing a little bit, probably for some of that property for more of that. And I'd like you to remember that there is a balance to everything, and the maritime industry is really important to the city of Seattle, whether you know it or not.
Thanks for that plug, Denny. And that's going to be one of the issues that I'm going to be working on in my new role on the external relations team. Supporting the maritime industry is the preservation of industrial lands. Industrial lands, people don't think of it this way, but it's a scarce resource, and they're constantly under threat of development. And it's really important to keep these robust and important businesses thriving by preserving those industrial lands for those purposes. So as I'm rallying my crews to go to, in front of Seattle City Council to say, no, we need to keep these industrial lands industrial, I may look to this group to see if folks would be willing to provide testimony and those kinds of things, because it really makes a big difference to hear from people who have lived in these communities for years and want to see them preserved as cornerstones of this important industry. So thanks for bringing that up.
You're welcome.
Good point.
And if I may, just in terms of final, the Fall Fishermen's Festival will be happening, and we are looking for sponsors. It was on hiatus for a couple of years, and the people who were putting it on, it was mainly 2 people, tenants from Fisherman's Terminal, that were making that happen. But it's a way that we are looking to potentially pivot and refresh it so that people really see the maritime jobs available and really highlight them. And so this coming fall festival, we need sponsors, but it will be then focused on workforce to be able to bring the then new generation to Fisherman's Terminal to understand really what that looks like and how we can support it. So if you have anyone or know anyone, let us know, and I can point you and give you the information of that team that is working on the planning.
Thank you. Well, thank you again, everyone. We appreciate it. And with that, we'll let you join you can stay with us for the rest of the evening or whatever you need to do. Great. Thank you again. So, okay, we have another presentation this evening. Our own board member, Carolyn Davis, is going to talk to us about something that I've been trying to get on the agenda for some time, but is Washington's red flag law and also extreme risk protection orders. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Carolyn. And I think at some point I'm going to have to run a video, so we'll see how that goes.
Thank you, Paula. Washington has a really excellent red flag law. The only real problem with it is that too few of us know much about it. The goal of that law is to protect people from a person in crisis who is often suicidal and intends to use a firearm to hurt himself, herself, and may also be looking to physically harm other people. The law allows the Superior Court to enter an extreme risk protection order, which are called ERPOs, because it's ERPO. These are civil, not criminal orders, and they can allow the police to remove weapons from a person when that person poses a threat to themselves or to others. And we have a really short video put together by the King County Prosecutor's Office I'll show you before I get into more detail.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen, and I hope I'm going to launch this video here. So are you seeing my browser?
Yes.
Okay, that's a good sign. And now you can see 3 interventions toolkit.
Right.
Okay, great. So it's the extreme risk protection orders here. And I hope that I posted the links in the chat. We weren't seeing it earlier, but hopefully it's there now. So if not, we'll make sure that it's in the information that we send out. So with that, I'm going to do this video. And get full screen.
When there's warning signs, when there's concerns about a loved one and their access to firearms. Extreme risk protection order is a civil court order that allows families and law enforcement to be able to petition the court.
This is based upon people's behavior. If they have serious mental health problems, it indicates they might be at risk of harming themselves, killing themselves, or they might be homicidal.
It seems to be chopping up a little.
Full extreme risk protection order is in place for just 1 year, with the possibility of it getting renewed for an additional year if necessary. Either law enforcement partners can petition for an extreme risk protection order, or household or family members, and which does also include roommates if they've resided together in the past year. Fill out the paperwork, get it to the judge reviews it, and then it gets served to the person. But when we're looking at when an extreme risk protection order might be the appropriate tool, we're specifically looking at someone's words, actions, and behaviors. That's when the judge will make a final decision on whether to put in place a full extreme risk protection order that's in place for 1 full year.
Can be returned to the individual earlier than that if the individual petitions and provides proof that they are really not risk of harming themselves or others.
Extreme risk protection orders are a huge way that families can feel empowered to keep their family, their loved one safe, as well as keep their community safe.
Extreme risk protection orders do save lives. They are an effective intervention in the ability to prevent future gun violence.
I think that's it, Paula. It was chopping up. But
It seemed that way, but that's the way it played when I first launched it before the meeting. So
okay.
I don't know if it's the version that I have. Anyway.
All right. So just to summarize again, these are civil orders. They can be filed by a family member, and there's a very broad definition of family, and it can also include a roommate or someone who's lived with a person, or it can be filed by the police department. And again, even though the police department is filing and becomes a petitioner, it is a civil order. It's not a criminal order. So why should you know about this? Why are we talking about this tonight? You may at some point have a friend or a colleague or a neighbor or someone who lets you know that they are in distress, that may not say I'm going to commit suicide, but may say some other things, that they can't go on, they're given up, and they might send you a picture of a gun that they just purchased, or give you a sense that they're getting close to that state. The other is you may find out from talking to a child or your grandchild or somebody in your neighborhood that they're aware of someone that they go to school with or they're friends with who has been talking about getting hold of a gun and doing some big event, something really scary, something really splashy, and that they are also going through personal crisis and suffering from depression and wanting to kill themselves. It's important to know that in Washington state, 74% of the suicides, 74% are with use of a gun. So that is the most common method of suicide. And currently, gun violence is the leading cause of death for children and teens, which is a really sad thing to say. Washington does have a safe storage law, but the information that's been put together by the Alliance for Gun Responsibility says only about 36% of households that have guns are practicing safe storage. Another thing that's been learned over time from folks who have studied data around mass shootings is that most mass shootings, about 80%, are done by a person who intends that the outcome of this will be their own death as well as the death of other people. So sometimes you've heard this phrase like suicide by cop. That's essentially what they're seeing as the end result of this event. Also, many of the people who are perpetrating mass shootings have told others well in advance that they intend to do something. And it's as often through social media. It may not be a broad spectrum of folks, but they've told more than one person, and they may have told them as much as a year in advance that this was going to happen. So that's how sometimes other kids and teens and young adults know these things, but don't know quite what to make of it or what to do with it, or is this person going to follow through? So the question is, okay, somebody comes to you and says, I have, you know, my friend is saying they're going to be committing suicide. They've told me they got a weapon. What do I do about that? If you're not a family member or roommate, you cannot file the extreme risk protection order, but you can report that to the police and ask that they work on that and give them the information to do so. You want to act on these things quickly. There's a short window of opportunity from the time you can learn of some of this to the time that something can be done to prevent this. So it's not your job to investigate it further, to talk to other people about it. You should really report it as soon as possible. If the person has talked to you directly about being in extreme crisis, you can immediately suggest to them to call 988, which is the crisis hotline, and talk to someone that way. If as an adult you hear about a child saying, gee, I'm concerned about my friend, and these are these messages I'm getting, and I don't know if he's joking or what this all means. Again, the last thing you want to do is sit on this information. You want to report it right away. So in the case of a child who's school age or is upset about where they've been to school, you both want to report that immediately to the police and also to the school itself, because the school has to make a decision about whether to shut down right away or the next day, depending on what time of day it is. And the police can proceed to get an extreme risk protection order. I spoke recently to the woman in charge of the office that issues all the civil protection orders, and she said there are now teenagers who are filing in regards to other teenagers who are sort of, you know, flashing weapons and talking about this kind of thing and seeking these protection orders. One thing to know about this law is it's set up so that if you deliberately file a false claim about this, or you're trying to harass someone by using an extreme risk protection order, that itself can end up getting you charged with a crime. So they've built in a safety net, so it's not just a kind of get even or go after somebody you're mad at kind of thing. And if in the process of, if there's an extreme risk protection order put in place and the person who's the subject of the order doesn't turn over their weapons, doesn't follow the terms of the order, then that can become a criminal charge. So it's good to know those things. The one thing the order does not do, it is not an order, excuse me, to keep one person away from another person. You can get an order around that, but it's a different kind of order. So these are really designed to remove weapons from someone who, again, is a danger to themselves or to others. So I was going to give you a couple minutes for questions if we have time for that, Paula. So
Sure. Denny's got a question.
One quick question, Carolyn.
yeah.
So it's mainly designed for somebody that has a weapon? Because I hear you say that, you know, they'll go remove them or something like that. But what happens if they're just going berserko or something? They don't have weapons. How does it help that?
It's really designed to remove firearms.
Okay.
So I think if you see somebody having a serious problem, that's a different question. And that's if they're not in a position where they can call 988. I don't know if you can call and say, is there a service or is there someone else who can come out and help this person? They're not, you know, they don't have a weapon. They're not threatening anyone with physical harm, but they seem to be in crisis. And I know we're trying to get our police department to develop a program of folks who can go out for those kinds of things.
Okay. Thanks.
Sure.
Anybody else? Okay, it's an important topic. It's something that we never think we're going to have to deal with, but sadly, we read every day about people who have these kinds of issues surface and they impact our communities in a really horrible way. So thanks, Carolyn, for that. We appreciate
Sure.
it. Okay. On that happy note, we're going to turn to more regular business. So before we get into our just general business, I do want to remind the board members that we were asked to submit a letter of support on behalf of the Pike Place Market Historical Society. Sorry, I'm not going to get the right words. In any event, there was a there's a bill before the city council that is an effort to permanently put into place some temporary measures that were created at the time of the COVID onset that basically streamlined certain elements of what can be approved for some historical properties. And at the time that made some sense. For many of the historical properties, it may still make sense, but where there's a strong belief is that it doesn't make sense to continue this streamlined version where it doesn't have to have any oversight by the respective historical societies that oversee each of these properties. It doesn't make any sense for the market to continue under that umbrella. So I have not seen the document, but I understand that Councilmember Lewis is actually submitting a motion to, or a movement to exempt the Pike Place Market from this particular bill. And the Friends of the Market have written a letter. I think that everybody saw the letter from Nick Licata as well, and from Peter Steinbreck. Yeah, I think there may have been another one. Yeah, Don Horn. So in any event, I drafted a very simple letter. Hopefully everybody has had a chance to look at it. And I guess we do have Heather Peel on the with us this evening. And Heather is a member of the Friends of Market organization and can answer some questions if anybody has questions before we take a vote. So are there any questions that anyone has specifically?
Hey Paula, it's Nicole. I have a question. I was traveling last week and with the holiday and everything, was a little bit behind. I don't know why I'm not following. I think the letter is, can you just clarify for me, like it's that we're not saying that Pike Place is not a historic.
No.
Okay, sorry. I think I was getting them like mixed up. So if you could just make sure fully, my brain's
Sure.
like.
Let me clarify. So again, at the beginning of COVID, Mayor Durkan put into place basically some streamlined measures that allowed like any of the city departments to just authorize repairs, modifications, that sort of thing to certain historical properties without the approval of their historical association or something. So a lot of these historical properties have an organization that provides oversight to preserve the historical properties of the building or whatever, as does the Pike Place Market. And so that was put into place. I believe it was extended once during COVID. And now this particular bill is saying it's worked okay. Let's just make it a permanent thing. For the Pike Place Market, that is something that we're asking, or they're asking, I should say, to be exempted, because the market isn't just a single building that maybe needs a new heating system, and that doesn't necessarily need oversight by the Historical Society. The nature of the market is such that it's the whole operation of the market that needs that review. And it has always been done that way. So Heather, can you make some clarifying comment about that?
Yeah, and I'd like to compliment you, Pauline, for the Paula, pardon me, for your elevator speech. I think you did an excellent job explaining. The Market Historical District was created far differently than any of the other historic districts in Seattle, in that it was created by Voters Initiative in 1971 that passed basically 2-1. And the Voters Initiative established the role of the Pike Place Market Historical Commission to review all changes in use and design in the historical district. And that's because Seattle, we love the market. And for that reason too, the voters levy to for capital upgrades to the market passed resoundingly in, I believe it was 2008. What is at stake is that the Department of Neighborhoods is proposing to have permanently staff review things like changes to HVAC, telecommunication equipment, ADA upgrades, which would mean, for example, elevators, seismic upgrades. So in other words, big cross braces that go into buildings, and other related operational changes to buildings. All of that would go through city staff instead of through the 12-member Pike Place Market Historical Commission, which is a citizens panel that has architects sitting on it. It has institutional memory. It also provides a chance for the public to chime in and to participate in the review of renovations at the market, in addition to new businesses and changes to their business spaces, for example. So the last set of renovations that went through from about 2008 to 2012 included many of the items on this set of improvements that would be proposed to hand it over to staff for review only. And the market is a small historic district. The scale of the buildings are small. The reviews by the commission are very comprehensive, to the point where when someone is setting up a shop or there are changes to common areas in the buildings, the commission reviews those changes for authenticity. So if staff, for example, would be reviewing changes for ADA or for life safety, that may not sound like much, but actually because the scale is small and the interiors are open to the public and reviewed by the commission, it means that no one gets to see what is being added to these buildings. And I can tell you that even with telecommunication equipment, like small cell additions to light poles, that can end up blocking a public view. So it all really matters in the market, and simply for the reason that it was set up with public oversight in 1971 to prevent the city from demolishing most of it, then we need to retain public oversight.
Thanks, Heather. Anybody else have a question? Okay. Then I will ask if there's a call for a motion to go ahead and vote.
Make a motion to vote.
Thank you. Okay.
Second.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, so just to review the process, if you abstain, you count toward the number of people here. And then but your vote doesn't count as a yes or no. Otherwise, you can vote yes or no. So again, I'm going to call once more for last minute questions. Otherwise, we're going to go ahead and vote. And I think we'll do it. Oh, Tyler.
Sorry, Paula, just to clarify, the kind of supporting and the pieces are, there's some double negatives. So I just wanted to figure out Andrew Lewis's position on this is what. Would you just outline that again, how Andrew Lewis was differentiating himself on this issue?
As I understand, and I haven't spoken to his office to get a copy of what they may be preparing, but my understanding is that his office is actually also going to ask that the market be exempted from this bill. So
okay, so aligned with the
position,
presentation and conversation we're having this evening. Sorry,
same.
that's I just many moving parts in the evening. Thank you.
Okay. So go ahead.
And I would just like to mention, pardon me, that yes, it's true that Councilmember Lewis said at the December 9th public hearing, the Neighborhoods Committee meeting, that he would propose an amendment to remove the market as struggle district from this legislation, but there's been no sign of an amendment yet. The next hearing is January 27th. So I would just suggest that we push through irregardless of what he decides to do, because we have no evidence of that amendment yet.
Right, and we vote what we want to do, not what he wants to do. So, okay.
Well, can I make one
Paula,
comment?
it's Sharon. I just wanted to clarify.
Sure.
The vote is just from council members, right? I mean, board members, right?
Yes.
Or are we doing this under LURC where anybody can vote?
No, this is the board,
Okay, just the board.
just the board. And Carolyn, or did somebody else have a question? Nope. Okay,
Well, I was just gonna make a quick comment.
Yeah.
That From a lurk standpoint, we haven't officially gone through it all, but we would agree with writing the letter and what it's worth.
yeah, I should have clarified. I did run this by Denny and Nicole to at least get some sort of feedback from them, because I knew we had to take this action before they could have their meeting and so forth. So, okay. Okay, so now I think we are ready to vote. So I'm going to call first, and this is for the Queen Anne Community Council board members only, please. So first for abstentions, and if you can yell out if I don't see you. Are there any abstentions? Okay, I hear no abstentions. I'm going to ask for yes votes that we submit the letter as is proposed, very short. And I would like to see a show of hands, please. And that means, yeah, that counts. Okay, so Carolyn Davis, Woods, and Beth, I'm so please keep your hands up so that we can get everybody on. And I'm going to read it. Jasmine is a yes. I'm a yes. Joe Woods, Carolyn Davis, Denny Bird, Ben Bennett, Deborah Santos, Beth Bonnell, and Tyler Crone, and Laura Corby, Nicole Sweeney, Jessica Jizik, and Don Harper. Okay, Sharon is a yes. Okay, I'm sorry, give me just a second. I have to go to the second screen of people here. Okay, is there anyone I have missed? Okay, I think we have everyone, and that is 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So that's 14 yeses. I will ask if there are any no's, but I don't see anybody. Is there anyone who is a no? If you can speak up or something. Okay, so no votes. So I guess that's it. So thank you. We'll get the letter out, and thanks, Heather, for your time. And
Thank you so much for working this in at short notice. And also, Paula, your questions were really helpful for me to get more organized and explaining the issue more succinctly to neighborhoods. Thanks a lot. Thank you so much to you all. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you on behalf of Friends of the Market. Thank you.
Yeah, they're training me how to ask these questions. So, okay. So now let's just cover our general business. Are there any questions or corrections to the minutes from actually November, since we didn't meet in December? Questions, corrections? So do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second? Anyone?
I saw Ben Bennett put his hand up.
Second.
Thank you. Okay. Great. So the minutes are approved. And Mr. Bennett, would you like to give us a treasurer's report, please?
Happy New Year to everyone. Our general account is $1,791.97, and our appeals account is $1,426.33.
Thank you. I'll make one quick comment about our financial stuff. So, excuse me, as everybody knows, we've been with Home Street Bank for a long time. Ben received a notice from them in I think December, early December, that they are not continuing their community, support program, whatever that is. Anyway, so where we have had the account fee free, it will no longer be that way. If any of the accounts, either of the accounts, I should say, drop below $1,000, then we'll start getting charged a monthly fee. So I have not reached out to BECU to see if they have some special kind of community account program that we might access, because we're not an organization that has a steady income stream, and the goal isn't to have like a ton of money sitting around. So we could easily drop below $1,000, and to see each of those accounts being eaten up by $10 a month doesn't sound like a lot, but it is a lot on the accounts of our size. So if anybody happens to know a banking organization that has these special free accounts for community groups, let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to just contact our neighborhood banks here to see if we can find somebody else to help us with this. So
yeah, Umpqua used to run a nice community program where they donated, right? Donated money. So they were involved. Now, whether they're still doing it, I don't know. But they used to run some stuff for the community.
I'll talk to them. Thanks, Don. I didn't know if I hadn't reached out to them or anybody else. So thanks. I'll check with them.
I'll just put this out there, Paula, that it seems that the one most in jeopardy would be the appeals account. So in terms of how we manage that money, would probably be the one most impacted.
Yeah, good point. Okay, good. Okay, thank you for that. Now we're going to go to our committee reports, which we, oh, I'm sorry, I had a couple of other points. So the price of MailChimp, the base price did increase from $11 to $13. We rarely ever pay just the base price because we send out mailings to more people. So anyway, we're likely to see a little bump in that. And I did renew the Zoom account for the year. It's cheapest to do it on year for 3 seats, $495.79. And so I haven't submitted a report or a request for reimbursement on that yet, but I'll get to that soon. Okay, committee reports. We haven't had those for a while. So I'm going to start. Public Safety Committee, we have been without Mr. Kettle, who I think is on the call somewhere, but since he's moved on to soccer coach and all those other very important things with his family, in any event, so we will have a meeting on January 24th of the Public Safety Committee. And we do have agreement from one of our board members to step in as the chair of that committee. And so that'll become official on the 24th. And that's Tyler Crone. So Tyler, you can wave your hand. In addition, and related to that, a couple of things on public safety. Probably most of you, if not all of you, are aware of the significant increase in crimes in our business community recently. December has been a horrible month, maybe even November and December for a lot of the businesses. Some of them have been hit multiple times. These are pretty much professional people. These are not just, crimes of convenience that somebody's walking by and running in, grabbing a few things. So Kevin Renderly, who is married to one of the 2 people at the dispatch, Queen Anne Dispatch, and I met with Sarah Nelson and Andrew Lewis to talk about this issue. We are going to have a bigger public meeting with as many of the businesses as we can get. Again, some city council people, SPD, they're already aware of this. And then we're hoping someone from the mayor's office, if not the mayor himself. And Marcus White, who is here. Marcus, you can wave hello. Marcus is another enthusiast for our public safety efforts and has agreed to help with the efforts, especially working with the businesses at this point, because that'll be our next kind of big initiative. So thank you, Marcus, and you'll see him around and about. So that's happening. Stay tuned for information on that. It is a big deal. While things have gotten better downtown, things have gotten worse up here. And Bill Fay, I think, is around. Yeah, so Bill and I had received some information from Sound Seismic, which many of you may be aware of. They're a business that's around here on Queen Anne. I see them a lot. In any event, they do seismic retrofitting for homes. They may do commercial as well, but I know they do it for homes. And so they sent a video of a program that they had put together to talk about seismic retrofitting for homes. I looked at the video, I submitted it to Bill and said, take a look and see what you think. And so they have offered to do a program. And Bill, you thought that was a good idea, and have any comments to make about it? So.
Well, it's a great video. I mean, basically goes through all of the principles of earthquakes and how buildings are attached, and the nature of old buildings and everything else. And then it goes through sort of a quick rundown on how they reattach buildings and how they work, with some ideas about costs and stuff like that. And to me, it was not a sales pitch. So I thought it was very informative and very good. Well done.
Yeah. So anyway, so sometime in the next few months, hopefully we can get a schedule together with them. And then that'll be a separate program that we do for anyone from the community or the city who wants to attend. And I think on public safety, that's all I have. Am I missing something? Anybody got something else? Okay, so with that, let's go to parks and Mr. Harper.
Yeah, no, not much really going on. I did send out the schedule for drop-in, right, at the, this is the winter schedule, of course, for the community center. I am waiting. I should have really done it yesterday, but I've been a little busy. So soon this week, I'll get back to parks that they thought they might have some more information on lifelong rec. I did explain last time we met that the problem is, well, they can't get people to come back in. All the people that used to work there have left or, you know, done whatever. And so they're trying to get that going. And I would just and I would only say if Carol Baker, who I see in the meeting, if she knows something more, she's been working hard both for the community and herself, because she uses it for lifelong rec. And if you've heard anything different than what I'm saying right now, just speak up. But I'm trying to get something from them. It's just not good. And I last time I noticed, that was probably a couple of weeks ago, pre-ice and snow, the swings were still not up at David Rogers Park. Those are the big swings, the only decent swings on all of Queen Anne, and they have not been reinstalled yet. So I'll check back in on that, because we do supposedly have a work order. But you know, every time Parks, not sure about it, but Parks does seem a little dysfunctional. They may be operating smoothly. There's only I that is dysfunctional. So that's it. I'll let you know if anything else comes up. And of course, I always email out anything that looks like it might be exciting and fun for Parks.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Don, when you contact the crew for David Rogers, would you please tell them that one of those giant boulders that they placed on Ray has come down the hill and is right at the street's edge and is about to go into the road? They put those there a few years ago at our request to keep people from parking there, but one has slid down. It's precarious. And
Now-
also, could you update us? Do you know when the lighting project outside the community center will end? What's the status?
It is. No, it's
Finished?
done. Yeah.
So
As far as I know,
fences
yeah,
were up a couple of days ago.
it was what?
I walked the dog around there a couple of days ago and the fencing was still up around. It was closed.
Well, that might be more for the rebuilding of the field, right? So that the grass grows. That may be more that they thought, oh, this is perfect. Leave the fence up, because right now, if people got on it, because it does make an excellent dog park, people would get up there and they would ruin the grass. So I have the feeling Parks is holding back. My understanding is that should have been commissioned and accepted towards the end of October. So yeah, and they did a nice job. They got nice lighting controls, beautiful LED lights. Not only will we have better lights on that field, we also have better cutoff, right? So it's not bleeding out, right? The higher the pole, the sharper the, right, the aim. So there's not the bleed. And then of course, the LED lights are very efficient. And the good thing was we replaced those wood poles, which have been up there for, I think, actually that the Native Americans installed them. That may be how long they've been there. So it's a good thing that they were taken out before they fell. So it's a win-win.
As long as they weren't totems, I guess. Okay, thank you, Don. Jasmine, I see you're here. Do you have anything to report on transportation?
Not
How's it
quite
been nice?
yet. Jessica and I will be circling together to do some planning for transportation this year. Point of personal privilege, with legislative sessions starting, our normal meeting time won't work. So we will let the transportation Google group know when will be a good time to meet. But yeah, nothing new, but excited to start thinking forward.
Great, thank you. And Lurk, Denny, wherever you are.
I'm right here. Excuse me, gotta get my voice back again. Couple quick things. We didn't have a meeting the last couple months because there wasn't that much to report, and with Christmas and everything, didn't want to waste a bunch of people's time. So for this month, on the 16th, is what I haven't confirmed it all yet, but this is the plan, just to get some updates on 21 Boston, just to see how it's going. Also on the storm facility at Interbay. And then I'd like to get a little update on the new facility on 15th West that they're building for by DSC.
Yeah.
And it's basically for the homeless. It's a shelter for them. It's not really a shelter. That's not the right word. It's permanent housing.
Yeah, permanent support.
Another quick announcement. So Seattle Pacific University Citizen Advisory Committee meets the first Wednesday and the third Wednesday of every month, but they will not be meeting in January or February. And the Department of Neighborhoods has now changed the name of that committee to something much longer that I can't remember. But next time I report, I'll let you all know. But it's no longer called the Citizens Advisory Committee. That's it.
Okay, thank you.
Hey,
Cheryl.
Denny, I've got a quick question for you. Did Lurk write a letter about David Mooring being removed from the Forestry Commission?
No.
No.
Because the other one I was going to ask is, I've heard a rumor that David Mooring is going to be replaced by an individual from Master Builders.
Really? I heard rumors of it, but I didn't know it actually happened.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely been removed by the mayor.
Really? That's
For those that don't know David Mooring, he's a architect who believes in densification, but also believes in saving trees. So he comes up with ideas and plans in the same spaces of how to save the trees at the same time increase in density, which is in conflict with Master Builders. Actually, having been a member for my company's health insurance. So.
Oh, thank you, Don, for that. I'll check into it.
Thanks, Don.
Okay. Anything I've missed on committees? I hope not. And very quickly, Carolyn, Bill Fay, and I have, along with another community member, had a great day at the Queen Anne Farmers Market in November when it was freezing cold. But Carolyn had the idea of getting the community booth, which we did, and we focused on emergency preparedness for kids. And so we had a lot of fun. There are stories to tell, but I will save those for another day. Let me tell you, Bill Fay is a person who likes to reverse engineer things. So in any event.
And Tyler helped out.
And oh, that's right. I'm sorry. Thank you. Thank you for reminding me, Tyler. Yeah. And so, yeah, so we did. We had a lot of fun and a lot of kids, and dragged their parents over too. So that was great. We had a good time. Also, I want to thank the board for helping to fund the tree that we lighted along Queen Anne Avenue. The sign is laying here. I didn't pick out a tree because I only got the sign, I don't know, right before Christmas, and I didn't get to it. So anyway, we'll try to pick out a tree. So quickly, coming in February, I have been kind of following an organization called Aurora Reimagined Coalition, which some of you may know about, some of you may not. Aurora Reimagined Coalition is a coalition of people who are interested in improving the way that Aurora Avenue is. It passes through our city from the Ship Canal north. I'm sorry, not from the Ship Canal, from the tunnel north to the county line. And it's not safe. There aren't sidewalks. I'm sure everybody knows how it looks over on the east side of Queen Anne. For us, it provides a barrier that separates part of Queen Anne from another part of Queen Anne. It's not necessarily pedestrian friendly. I don't know that it's very car friendly. It's not bike friendly. So it's not the nicest highway to have going through a city. They have a vision for changing that, and there's actually finally kind of some movement on the part of SDOT, WashDOT, all the dots that have to be involved in the event. So they had contacted Rick Cooper and I about the interest in people from the Queen Anne community in helping with ideas and stuff for our section of Aurora, because it tends to be the coalition and then the various communities that are represented for various segments of Aurora. And Rick and I thought it was a great idea. So they're going to come to our meeting in February and give a presentation about their work. In the meantime, I'll be putting out a call for people who are interested in that particular initiative. There are probably a lot of different tangents to it because there's sidewalk issues, there are street issues, there are non-existent crosswalks now, but the goal is to make it more neighborhood friendly, more human friendly, and more a part of our community rather than a freeway that goes through our community. So in any event, if you have any interest, and then I'm probably going to put this on Jasmine's plate, but nevertheless, so if you have any interest in that, let me know. And we're also going to just ask for interest from people in the community as well, because over time it will probably take a number of years to get some of these programs put into place. The coalition had what really prompted me to get in touch with them some time ago is they had made a note of the poor sidewalk condition here along Queen Anne, and they actually were able to get the sidewalk cleaned so that at least it was passable, and the blackberry bushes that covered part of it were cut back, and some of the grass and stuff, but it's still not a really good sidewalk in many areas. So so that's coming up. We've also talked about we talked in our planning meeting about ideas for future speakers. So Denny, Nicole, and I had talked about the interest in having like maybe Dan Strauss, possibly Teresa Mosqueda, to talk about housing, zoning, rezoning. Mosqueda is very much in favor of high density and eliminating of single family zoning. And I don't know how Dan Strauss feels. He's the land use committee chair for the city council, but that would be an interesting presentation discussion to have.
Hey, Paul, I was going to email you about that. I'm sorry I didn't respond to your email, but I think it's a great idea. I think that given I think it's a sensitive topic, and I think that people have a lot of polarizing opinions about it. And so we may want to discuss the best way to facilitate that type of conversation to make sure that, you know, it stays away from some potential to kind of fall off the rails in terms of, you know, it's a public meeting, you know, people have a lot of opinions, and I think we don't want to invite people to come for it to be like and just for the sake of, you know, like a very much like not in my backyard type of, you know, foot down. So I think that we should discuss the best way to, you know, either it's, you know, moderating questions or thinking about who's gonna kind of facilitate that. But I can just see, just given, you know, it is a, you know, a sensitive topic. We've discussed it on LRC, we've discussed it here, like, you know, with a lot of different folks. It's a very kind of, people have a lot of different opinions about it. And I think it would just be, I think it'd be good to hear from our city councilors about their sort of opinions and the way that we see the direction of the city going, but, you know, doing everything we can to keep it, I think respectful is probably, would be in what we'd want to do. So we should talk about the best way to facilitate that.
Yep, absolutely agree with that. It's not intended to be a forum where we pick a position. It's intended to be an informative one, because my understanding is now that I think we had 5 options that had been presented as part of the comprehensive plan. And now I hear that there may be a 6th one. I don't know. But anyway, so to at least get up to date on what the city council is thinking, what they see as the options, and also what the planning commission is looking at as well. So but yeah, you're right. We don't want it to be a bitch session. We want it to be an information sharing session. So.
Nicole, I agree with you 100% too. Here's what we might want to do is just do it like we did for some of the people that were running for office, and just have them send in some questions. So there's not any, they can just answer the questions, or the majority of them that we have.
Yeah. And then maybe just like, I'd be happy to, you know, moderate, and then we can just figure out a good way to do that.
Perfect.
Good point though.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll see if we can get them. Anyway, so I still have on my to-do list trying to get a Queen Anne Community Council / community meet and greet together, so that we can actually have a chance to meet in person with some people from the community who may never have seen any of us out in real life. So we'll be talking more about that. And finally, we also had a question raised about concern about the declining enrollment in Seattle's public schools. So we're just in the infancy of starting to look into that and see what we can find out, and whether it's something that as a community we should be concerned about, or as a city we should be concerned about, and what, if anything, you know, we may be able to say or do. So okay,
that will be a very explosive subject.
Well, hopefully.
I mean, I can tell you there's the reason why people are leaving the Seattle public schools is because of the poor education programs.
Yeah.
I mean, go look at the data. Don't get me started on that one.
Okay. Maybe we'll
and plus, when you try to go into your district, the people aren't very responsive. I have tons of emails in trying to approach programs. And anyway.
Yeah, we understand there are problems. So anyway, we will see what we can find out, and then hopefully be able to have an informative program about it, and then people get to make their own decisions about school board representatives or whatever you do about getting the schools to be better in Seattle. So, okay, that's all I have. What else is there for the good of the order? Carolyn.
On a social note, Queen Anne Dispatch is having a party for Calvin, the longtime mailman who retired. I think his last day was Christmas Eve, and it's January 14th from 5 to 7 at Queen Anne Dispatch. So come on by. Calvin's the one now who has naming rights to the crane.
Yes, he does. Thank you for bringing it up. Anybody else? Okay, well, thank you, everyone. And again, Happy New Year. We obviously have a lot that we know about and probably a lot we don't know about. And it's going to be in a very interesting election year. So we can start thinking now about candidate forums for the fall. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye.
Hey, Paula.